At this point, the Diddy documentary has moved beyond being just another headline. It's become a reference point, something people are now using to argue about accountability, power, and how stories like this are supposed to be told in the first place. And when Dr. Umar entered the conversation, that debate shifted again. He didn't approach it as casual commentary. He came in with a direct critique, saying that in his view, 50 Cent crossed a line by how this documentary was framed and promoted. Now, before you leave any comments, please make sure to watch the entire video.
I saw the Diddy documentary. Here's what I'm going to say about the Diddy documentary. And I have no problem with black people holding black people accountable. I'm having a problem with black people needing to expose black people that in-depthly.
Yeah.
But you never expose white people who do things to black people.
Once that clip began circulating, the discussion stopped being only about the allegations themselves. It turned into a broader question about exposure, who receives it, how intensely, and under what circumstances. Now, before we go any further, if you rock with the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more hip-hop news like this. It really helps the channel grow. Here's where the conversation requires nuance. Dr. Umar wasn't arguing that wrongdoing should be ignored or minimized. His point wasn't defensive, it was structural. He questioned why certain figures receive a full, cinematic, long-form public examination, while other institutions with documented histories of abuse rarely face the same sustained level of scrutiny. That's why his argument widened. That's why he referenced Epstein. That's why he referenced the Catholic Church.
The Roman Catholic Church has taken advantage of way more children than R. Kelly allegedly did.
Right.
Are you following me?
I'm following you.
Jeffrey Epstein has taken advantage of way more women than Sean Combs allegedly did. But where is the documentary on Epstein by black people? Where's the documentary on the Roman Catholic Church excesses on black people? You see what I'm saying? So to me, the 50 Cent documentary, again, respect the 50, no issues there. It is an example of self-hatred disguised as community service. You see how that go? It looks like community service. No, it's not. That's self-hatred.
Not to excuse anyone's behavior, but to highlight inconsistency in how accountability is applied. And whether people agree with him or not, that inconsistency is something many have noticed long before this documentary. This is where things become uncomfortable, because questioning exposure often gets interpreted as defending behavior. Those two ideas are not the same, but online discourse rarely allows that distinction to exist for long. Timing also matters here. Dr. Umar didn't speak during the early phase, when information was fragmented and public opinion was still forming. He waited until the documentary was complete, widely viewed, and validated by a major platform, with 50 Cent openly backing it. That timing matters. Once a story reaches that level, it stops being speculation and starts becoming part of the public record. Umar understands how media legitimacy works. Waiting until that point meant his critique was aimed at a finished narrative rather than an evolving one. At the same time, waiting doesn't automatically imply manipulation. Sometimes people wait for clarity, sometimes they wait to avoid adding noise, and sometimes they wait because that's when the conversation actually carries weight. When Umar framed this moment as accountability mixed with something more complicated, he wasn't just talking about Diddy, he was questioning the system that determines how public judgment is distributed. Here's the uncomfortable part that often gets skipped over. Once accountability becomes content, it stops being only about justice. It also becomes about performance. Performance changes incentives. It rewards escalation, shock, and narrative dominance more than patience or proportionality. That doesn't mean the story is false. It means the environment shaping how the story is told is not neutral. That distinction matters. It's also where things began to unravel. As soon as Dr. Umar raised these points, the focus shifted away from the argument and toward him personally. His credibility, the school, the finances, the unanswered timelines. That shift explains why the conversation stalled. When trust in the messenger is weak, even valid questions struggle to survive. Instead of analyzing media structures, people debated character. Instead of discussing power, they turned the moment into jokes and memes. And once the conversation becomes personal, substance tends to disappear. Fourth talking point. Now compare that to 50 Cent's response. He didn't engage the critique directly. He didn't debate the logic. He dismissed it. That wasn't impulsive. It was strategic. 50 understands that engagement gives legitimacy. By refusing to debate, he framed the critique as irrelevant to the forward motion of the project. That response makes one thing clear. 50 is not operating as a moral authority here. He's operating as a strategist, and that distinction matters because strategy doesn't require purity. It requires alignment. Truth, timing, personal history, and opportunity can all exist in the same decision. 50 and Diddy have a long history of industry tension and power struggles. So, when 50 supports a documentary like this, it can reveal real information and still be influenced by personal context. Those realities don't cancel each other out. The victims can matter, the documentary can be necessary, and the motivations behind it can still be complicated, all at the same time. Where the discourse keeps breaking down is in the inability to separate critique of presentation from defensive behavior. Questioning how a story is told is not the same as excusing what the story is about. But once loyalty, race, and identity enter the conversation, nuance becomes difficult to maintain. Everything turns into a binary choice, and that limits meaningful analysis. What Dr. Umar's comments ultimately surfaced is that exposure itself operates within power structures. Who funds the story? Who platforms it? Who benefits from the narrative? Recognizing that doesn't absolve harm. It contextualizes influence. And this leads to the part that makes people uneasy. Not the allegations, not the documentary, but the realization that public accountability is no longer primarily shaped by courts, communities, or institutions. It's increasingly shaped by platforms, narratives, and whoever controls attention first. That shift doesn't automatically produce justice. It produces visibility, and visibility is powerful, but it isn't the same thing. Zooming out, this moment isn't only about Diddy. It reflects a broader transition. Figures who were once insulated by status are now vulnerable to sustained public scrutiny. Technology has altered how power is challenged and how it collapses. That creates discomfort because predictability disappears. No one knows who will be next or how deeply their past will be examined. People often want a clean moral framework, a villain, a hero, and a clear resolution. But situations like this resist that simplicity. Accountability can be real. Motives can be mixed. Exposure can inform and still raise ethical questions. Question for the viewers. So let me leave you with this. Do you think documentaries like this represent meaningful accountability, or is there a point where exposure becomes more about spectacle than justice? And if this level of scrutiny is appropriate for Diddy, should it be applied consistently, or is this simply what public power looks like when it unravels? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't just choose a side, explain your reasoning. And if you haven't already, make sure you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications for more hip-hop news like this. And if this breakdown added value, there's another one waiting on your screen right now. Click it and I'll see you there. I'll catch you in the next one.